East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Otelli Edwards. A warm welcome to East Asia Tonight. Now, this half-hour edition starting slightly later than usual, following CNA's Singapore Budget Special. And here are tonight's top stories. NATO defense chiefs gather in Brussels with a focus on regional security and beyond, just as it begins a mission to boost the alliance's presence in the Arctic amid alleged threats in the region from China and Russia. South Korea's spy agency warns of an accelerating ballistic missile program in the north, including the development of a nuclear-powered submarine capable of launching such long-range projectiles. And South Africa deepens trade ties with China, signing a new framework deal as uncertainty over U.S. policy prompts the country to diversify its markets. And Singapore bets big on AI. In the budget, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong unveils new measures, including a National AI Council, as well as focused missions for key sectors like advanced manufacturing, finance, and healthcare, as the city-state refreshes its strategy for a more uncertain world. Also ahead on the bulletin, foreign visitors flocking in record numbers to the southwestern Chinese city of Chongqing. CNA's Tan Si-hui looks into what's behind the hype. South Korean lawmakers say the North is expanding its ballistic missile program. Developments reportedly include a large submarine capable of carrying up to 10 projectiles. Well, the lawmakers, citing South Korea's spy agency, say the vessel could be powered by a nuclear reactor. But it is unclear whether it will be operationally functional as designed. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un earlier signaled plans to bolster Pyongyang's nuclear deterrence. Now, he made the remarks during the unveiling of the new 5-year plan for national defense this week. Seoul added that Pyongyang's short-range ballistic missiles have improved considerably since helping Russia's war on Ukraine. North Korea has been supplying Russia with troops under a mutual defense pact. In 2024, Pyongyang deployed some 14,000 soldiers to fight alongside Russian troops in the Kursk region. Seoul adds that Mr. Kim appears to be taking steps to consolidate his daughter's position as successor. South Korea's National Intelligence Agency is reportedly keeping a close watch on Kim Jong-il amid speculation that she could be providing input on policy matters. She has been frequently and prominently featured in state media, accompanying her father on field guidance, including the inspections of weapons projects. Now, the teenager is expected to attend a key Workers' Party Congress later this month. China has called Taiwanese President William Lai a, quote, war instigator after he warned in an interview that other countries could be next if China seizes the island. He told the AFP news agency that China would not just stop there and instead become what he calls more aggressive and threaten other countries such as Japan and the Philippines in the Indo-Pacific region. Beijing, in response, called him, quote, a peace disruptor and crisis instigator, and added that seeking independence and resistance to reunification with China are doomed to fail. These remarks come as President Lai vowed to ramp up defense spending to 3% of GDP this year and proposed allocating $40 billion towards security over the next 8 years. China has long viewed Taiwan as part of its territory and has often threatened to use force to bring the island under its influence. China routinely deploys warships and fighter aircraft around Taiwan and launched a large-scale military drill in December last year, following the announcement of a record arms deal between Taipei and Washington. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says that the security alliance needs to pivot more towards the Indo-Pacific to ensure a strong Europe. He also says the bloc should bolster defenses in the Arctic against growing threats from Russia and China. He made those remarks ahead of a gathering of NATO defense ministers in Brussels, in a Brussels meeting to discuss ending the war in Ukraine and ensuring stability in the northernmost regions of Europe.
The threat is there. The long-term Russian threat is there. And we should not be naive, by the way, about China. And when it comes to the Arctic, it is not only Russia. It is also China. We know that sea lanes are opening up, so we have to defend the Arctic and bring together all these various initiatives. And then charting a way ahead, making sure that we identify the gaps which are there, and then making sure that we can fill the gaps and taking into account all the latest technologies.
This a day after the launch of NATO's Arctic Sentry mission, designed to boost the bloc's presence in the region and to also diffuse tensions following U.S. President Donald Trump's designs on Greenland. The mission will see the ramping up of military presence of NATO allies, including exercises such as Denmark's Arctic Endurance on Greenland. China has not commented on NATO's new mission, while Russia has warned of countermeasures should the island be militarized. For more, we are joined now by Will Denslow, who is covering the story for CNA in Brussels. Will, first up, why does the Arctic Sentry mission matter so much to NATO at this moment?
Well, as we heard from the NATO Secretary General, essentially the High North is changing and the geopolitical situation, the geopolitical dynamics are changing with it. According to Rutte, the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the world. He mentioned those shipping lanes opening up, essentially bringing with it more opportunity, but also more risk. He says that NATO needs to be prepared. He says that this umbrella that the Arctic Sentry provides will essentially allow for more coordination. It will allow more NATO forces to get to grips with working in such hostile conditions, as well as to help identify any potential security gaps that might exist. So certainly this is seen as a concerted effort, and there have been plenty of questions about whether this is a move just to appease President Trump, who has said that he required Greenland for national security reasons. The US has previously said that fellow members of the NATO military alliance weren't up to the task of protecting the region. But the message we're hearing here at NATO headquarters is that is not true, and that a coordinated effort is required to keep the region safe.
So, Will, how much then will the alliance's Indo-Pacific coordination actually feature in this defense ministers' meeting, especially when NATO increasingly sees security in Asia as strategically linked?
It's seen as absolutely crucial. This was the message we heard when military chiefs convened here in Brussels a few days ago, and certainly that momentum is continuing. The fact of the matter is that as far as NATO officials are concerned, partnerships with nations in the Indo-Pacific are becoming ever more crucial. The reason for that, and something we've heard Mark Rutte say, is that essentially that many of the security issues being faced are intrinsically interlinked. Take, for example, the issue of China. While China might not have a direct presence in the Arctic, it might not be one of the 8 countries that claim to share territory in the Arctic region. There are, of course, posturing by China as far as NATO is concerned. So this kind of action by China certainly being watched here in the Arctic region as far as NATO is concerned, but of course something that partners in the Indo-Pacific watching very closely as well. Issues such as the Ukraine war also interlinked. NATO again saying that China providing these dual-use items for Russia in the war with Ukraine, and of course the involvement from North Korea as well. So really an overarching message from NATO officials is that while geography may separate Europe and the North Atlantic military organization, but of course these issues that they share are very much interwoven.
Well, many thanks for that report. Will Denslow covering the story for CNA in Brussels. A time now for a short break, but coming up on East Asia tonight, Washington, in a blunt warning, says Peru could lose its sovereignty to China over a Chinese-owned port, prompting Beijing's criticism. The U.S. has warned that Peru risks losing sovereignty to China after a court ruling limited the government's oversight of a major $1.3 billion Chinese-built port. A judge had earlier barred the transport regulator from exercising regulatory as well as supervisory powers over the deep water port in Chongqing, operated by Chinese state-owned shipping giant COSCO. The U.S. calls the development a cautionary tale about reliance on Chinese financing. The Chongqing port, part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, is Latin America's deepest and can handle some of the world's largest cargo ships. Chinese state-owned shipping and logistics company COSCO, a majority shareholder of the port, has since rejected U.S. claims. It said that the port remains under Peruvian jurisdiction and subject to national laws. China's foreign ministry also dismissed Washington's remarks today, condemning America for what it calls a smear campaign. Peru's transport regulator says it will appeal the court's decision, arguing that COSCO should not be exempt from oversight. The dispute comes amid broader U.S.-China rivalry in Latin America and as the Trump administration increases pressure on regional nations to align with Washington's interests. Panama's top court recently voided a Hong Kong-based firm's port contracts in a development seen as a boost for U.S. efforts to curb Chinese influence in the Western Hemisphere. Now, the southwest Chinese city of Chongqing hit record tourism numbers last year, with more than 2 million inbound trips recorded. Tourism officials say of these, 1.5 million were foreign visitors. Well, that's more than 70% higher than last year. CNA's Tan Su-hui finds out this tourism boom didn't quite happen by chance.
From spicy mala hot pot to a train that disappears through a building, and a city that comes alive after dark. If you've been on social media, you've probably heard of Chongqing.
There's a lot of videos on WeChat, WhatsApp, etc., and I know it's happening.
We saw a lot of in TikTok about the city, a lot of nice, cool location.
Built across mountains and valleys, Chongqing is known as a vertical city. Its unique architecture makes it a natural fit for social media.
This is the longest escalator in Chongqing, and a one-way trip takes about 2.5 minutes, so see you at the top. Hello, Hugh.
Local tour guide Hugh He has turned that visual appeal into business.
They like to see the cyberpunk vibe of the city, and also we call it the AD infrastructure.
After China expanded its visa-free scheme in 2023, foreign arrivals to Chongqing picked up.
If you ever see this kind of motorbike video shooting in Chongqing, don't try it, because it's too...
Mr. He shifted gears, catering exclusively to overseas tourists, and stepped up posts on platforms like Instagram and TikTok aimed at foreign audiences. Business has surged from around 10 tours a month in 2024 to about 100 a month today.
We are hiring English-speaking guides. The basic qualification is they have to speak very fluent English. And the second one is they should have overseas experience, so they should know more about the international culture.
Officials say Chongqing's viral rise was no accident, but part of a coordinated push.
2025年开展了国际网红贾康哥重庆行、NBA 球星库里重庆行等主题宣传。以东南亚客运市场为例，在关注到东南亚游客的年轻化、社交驱动特征明显的趋势以后呢，我们创新的开展了第3届“我想去中国之太想去重庆”的短视频大赛。
Southeast Asia leads international rivals, while Europe, Russia, and the Middle East are growing rapidly. Officials credit efforts to make the city more foreigner-friendly.
外卡受理实现重点场景全覆盖，离境退税商店增加到了接近300家。
Improving infrastructure and connectivity has been key too. Chongqing Jiangbei International Airport opened a new terminal last year, with a 4th runway coming online in 2024. Retail and dining options have also been upgraded.
我们希望的话，旅客到了重庆机场，如果他们想吃重庆本地的美食，那就到我们的重庆老字号美食城；如果他们想吃国际的美食，他们可以到环球美食城，包括我们的东南亚美食。
This new commercial street opened in 2023, part of a joint venture with Singapore's Changi Airport, drawing on its global expertise.
这个机场，我们跟重庆机场的合作，现在的话是中国的一个模范项目。很多的机场，他们到我们这边来参观，也认可我们的经验。所以的话呢，我们把这一个我们在重庆机场的模式，已经推广到海口机场和无锡机场。也建立了我们的合资公司。
But can other cities replicate Chongqing's success? As a municipality directly under the central government, Chongqing has more autonomy and resources than many other second-tier cities. Local authorities offer performance-based incentives to travel agencies.
It will be difficult to replicate the scale, but it's not that hard to replicate what Chongqing is doing to improve the living environment and the ecosystem when it comes to tourism. Even for places in Shandong, such as Yantai and Zibo, they're investing a lot to improve this local transportation and the cleanness when it comes to the local food scene. I can see this positive spillover effect actually from Chongqing.
And Chongqing is betting that this strategy, not just viral buzz, will keep tourists coming back. Tan Sihui, CNA, Chongqing.
Time now for another break, but coming up on East Asia tonight.
It was a conscious and strategic decision to take advantage of a relationship that already exists from a trading point of view.
South Africa's trade minister tells CNA the reasons for his country's accelerated push to shore up ties with partners such as China. South Africa says uncertainty from U.S. trade moves is accelerating its push to deepen ties with partners like China, even if that means raising uncomfortable issues. Well, it signed a framework agreement for a new trade deal with Beijing last week, days after a short-term renewal of a free trade agreement between the U.S. and African nations until the end of the year. CNA's senior correspondent Olivia Seong spoke to South African Trade Minister Pak Tau in Cape Town on the latest trade moves.
It was a conscious and strategic decision to take advantage of a relationship that already exists from a trading point of view and to enhance that. And there are opportunities on both sides. Part of the agreement is about how we create opportunities for South African companies to invest in China, how Chinese companies can invest in South Africa. We are significant importers of Chinese product, including automotives. BAIC has been in the country for some time, and they are converting into complete knockdown and therefore manufacturing in South Africa as of this month. And Cherry has made an offer to buy the facilities at Nissan and to start producing in Pretoria. We had discussions around steel and opportunities along the steel value chain.
To what extent, though, was this accelerated by trade moves that we've seen by the U.S.?
Well, you know, we try not to counterbalance the two. You know, if you think about it, China and the U.S. are our two biggest trading partners. We need to enhance trade with the two countries, and we need to ensure that we're able to deal with whatever issues are coming up. Of course, the whole world has had to engage with the reality of U.S. tariff decisions and the impact that has on trade, and that accelerates the need to diversify and to create security for your own industry in the country. But we continue to take a view that we should engage with the U.S. It certainly does speed up our engagement with other countries. Certainly China's importance has increased. This is our number one trading partner. So the fact that China has made the point and said, look, we're creating access to market for you is a significant statement.
We're talking about Chinese investment into South Africa, but you've also mentioned that industrialization tied to this investment is important. How do you plan to enforce that?
of course, in any trade relationship, there are areas of discomfort. There's the reality that we've had our smelters in chrome and manganese closing down, and a lot of this product going into the Chinese market. And we said, but can we try and ensure that we get Chinese investors to do these sorts of investment in the country? And China has been open to that discussion. So sometimes these discussions get to that point. There are areas in which we've had to discuss anti-dumping measures that we've introduced because there are products that we believed are being dumped in the country. But it's a conversation that we're having. We took a view in our discussions last week that, look, in areas where there's discomfort, any of us should be able to raise that. And we should be able to resolve these issues before we take extraordinary measures.
So what are the next steps?
The next steps are the early harvest agreement that will be signed by the 26th of March. It gives us about 5 weeks in which to work on a very intensive program. The second is an agreement on green minerals and industrialization that we have in discussions with and have expressed appetite to participate in the green mining and minerals program that China has announced. We signed MOUs with the standard bodies in China, and that creates easier access to market, because if you've resolved your standard issues, it is easier to get your products into the market.
Singapore's Prime Minister has announced a nearly 155 billion Singapore dollar budget aimed at securing the country's future in a time of profound global change. Lawrence Wong, who's also Finance Minister, laid out initiatives covering the economy, AI developments and families. Let's take a quick look at what's being rolled out. Well, first, support for all Singaporeans amid cost pressures. Households will receive $500 in CDC vouchers, and eligible adults will receive up to $400 in cash. And families with children will also be given $500 to defray household expenses. Now, for Singaporeans who wish to generate higher returns on their retirement savings, they can now do so under a new affordable investment scheme under CPF. And in the AI space, efforts to harness the technology as a strategic advantage. Prime Minister Wong will helm a new National AI Council to provide strategic direction and drive the country's AI agenda. And as for businesses, short-term relief to alleviate cost pressures and support to expand overseas. $1 billion will also be set aside for promising companies. Workers, meanwhile, are set to benefit from better alignment of future skills and jobs needed. And to build Singapore's sense of solidarity, a new fund will help encourage ground-up initiatives to meet community needs. Tax deductions will also be extended to spur giving of both time and funds.
We therefore have a full agenda in this term of government to refresh our strategies and strengthen our social compact. Budget 2026 is the first step in this effort to secure our future in a changed world. It lays the groundwork for how we will navigate our next phase of development together as one people.
And that wraps up this Thursday's half-hour edition of East Asia Tonight. Don't forget your headlines anytime at CNA.Asia. Thanks for watching.